Blockdrops. This week we're covering the acquisition of web3 auth by Consensus, a16z crypto announcing the end of the crypto foundation era, Yuga Labs sunsetting ApeCoin DAO, and much more. I'm your host, Mauricio Magaldi, and this is Blockdrops, your weekly digest on blockchain for business. These news are not a form of endorsement, sponsorship, or encouragement for consumption, and are meant for educational purposes only. We're back talking about crypto UX, and today it's about the acquisition of web3 auth by the one Consensus. Consensus is the company that supplies you with the Metamask web3 wallet, and they acquired this web3 auth, which is a provider of wallet infrastructure with an aim to increase better user experience and also developer accessibility to Web3 in general. The goal is that they will use the infrastructure to modernize the onboarding experience for Metamask, hopefully abstracting away the seed phrase, the dreaded seed phrase, those 12 to 24 secret words that you have to keep to get control of your private keys, which is the actual representation of your ownership of the assets that live on the blockchain, is also a big headache when it comes to user experience. According to Consensus, they have 30% of all MetaMask users that do not back up their seed phrases correctly, which ultimately can lead to the immutable loss of their funds, which is obviously not great for user experience. Web3 offers a login and recovery tool that is very similar to the usability you see on Web3 style user flow. And this, according to MetaMask, will allow them to access the wallets without relying only on the seed phrase. We keep saying intuitive interface when it comes to Web2, but that's because we've been using the same form factor for over, 20 years, maybe almost 30 years since the login was invented. So I think this is what makes it intuitive, is that most of us are already more than used to it, but people who are entering the internet at this day and age, it's all they see, so it becomes intuitive by the force of familiarity, and that's what MetaMask seems to want to capture. Consensus seems to want to capture. This acquisition is not only for users, but also for developers. They are going to offer an improved developer experience with an SDK that offers more flexible tools for blockchain integration, especially when it comes to consumer-facing applications. And the goal here is to push forward the adoption of the decentralized web in ways that it's invisible to users, so they can tap into the enormous power of decentralization. I love the message. I do want to see how if this becomes the standard. MetaMask has probably the largest user base in all of crypto. So if this becomes the standard, what does this mean to other wallets or other form factors? And is this what we need for user adoption? For those of you that have been in the industry for a while, it's always interesting to see a new chain launch. And they always have an accompanying foundation, which is a nonprofit company that kind of operates and coordinates for the governance, for the grants distribution, for growing the ecosystem and things like that. This format of entity actually was introduced to crypto with the launch of Ethereum. The Ethereum Foundation, probably the first one of this kind. And obviously it happened in a moment where regulation didn't even exist to support public chains. And a16z Crypto's Miles Jennings, their head of policy and legal, who's probably one of the most prolific writers when it comes to policy making, regulation, and governance, wrote an article in their blog this week that is labeled "The End of the Foundation Era in Crypto." And I don't agree or disagree, but I do want you guys to think about the points that he raises. First, that the foundations, again, emerged on a moment where regulation wasn't supportive, and we're seeing a fast change of that. They also created a lot of friction because they have a lot of employees and processes. They are a company in on itself. They lack clear feedback loops. Sometimes it's really hard to have them being accountable for something or being held accountable by the community. The incentives are different between the community and the foundation employees and directors, which creates a lot of stress. They operate in silos because they become this traditional company that runs the Web3 ecosystem. Some projects have held a shadow governance when the foundation is not actually playing to their favor. And now that there are other tools for incentives and even new formats, there are policies that are trying to propose DUNAs, which are decentralized, unincorporated nonprofit associations, and cybernetic organizations dubbed Borg, that can help provide a path to implementing these decentralized governance solutions in ways that are different. And what we need is real governance. Coordinating the human factor is a lot of work. And maybe the foundation's had its place in the history of crypto, but Miles proposes that there are new forms that can enable that, especially as the regulation and the policies are now evolving to support these new decentralized formats. On my end, I think this is all a big concern because there are legal aspects involved and coordination aspects involved, and the humans are there. So is this the best way to end this era, or we'll see more in the space coming next? And speaking of decentralization, this week I came across this new proposal from Yuga Labs. The CEO, Greg Solano, proposed a new voting proposal on the ApeCoin DAO to actually sunset ApeCoin DAO. And this comes on the back of the DAO being criticized for being slow, noisy, supporting unserious governance proposals or an unserious governance theater, too many resources being pushed towards vanity proposals or initiatives that had little or no impact in the community. And the proposal actually is to not just sunset the DAO, but also create an ApeCo. So the ApeCoin DAO would be replaced by ApeCo, which is a subsidiary of Yuga Labs. And this has seen mixed reviews, some supporters, some detractors of the proposal. Some members have expressed concern about the sequence in these events and how they lead to the shutdown of the DAO, and there's a potential for Yuga Labs to get a lot of control and power over the ecosystem. The majority of the response has been positive, though, with members citing the need for a more professional, focused approach to governance. DAOs in general, and I have my share of criticism of DAOs, they are rarely decentralized. They're absolutely not autonomous, and they're very rarely organized. So I think this is kind of the surfacing of symptoms of the human coordination factor that take a large toll over DAOs or decentralized governance in general. And Solano proposes this to take a little bit more speed into how the community can evolve. It's an early stage for the proposal. They absolutely will have to discuss this in the forums. But if it passes, it has implications for the ecosystem and even for wider community, because if this is the new format, as Miles was proposing on the end of the foundations, maybe there's also something to be said about the state of DAOs in general and how they govern these projects in a, for now, suboptimal way. Not that we've seen great governance elsewhere, but human coordination is a big consumption for resources. And I think that that's what this comes down to. Hopefully, as this evolves and more clarity of this discussion is surfaced, we'll see better alternatives than just handing the control of the community to a centralized entity. Maybe there is a middle ground somewhere, and we'll be able to discuss this openly because this is Web3. And in a week packed full of news, here's more. Circle finally pushed out its IPO, and it's seen 160+% gain on day one of trading. MBX announced that they will use Bitcoin as backing for the USDM stablecoin running on Cardano. The Global Dollar Network partnered with the block to issue the use case report on stablecoins. The FCA in the UK will lift the ban on crypto ETNs aimed at crypto investors. Uber announced they're exploring the use of stablecoins for global transfer. Catch us online. We're on Instagram at blockdropspodcast, on Twitter at blockdropspod or 0x Mauricio. We're on Lens at blockdrops.lens. We have a newsletter on LinkedIn. Write to us at blockdropspodcast@gmail.com, and you can listen to the Blockdrops podcast at Spotify, iColab, Faberbund Tech, and all of the other major streaming platforms. Yay! Shout out today to the people who shared the links you will find in the episode notes: Charles Hoskinson, Dante Disparte, Carlos Arena, Thiago Earp, Nicole Kyle, and Miles Jennings. Don't forget to leave the ratings on your favorite player and visit the store at blockdropspodcast.xyz. This is all for today. Stay rare, stay weird, LFJ.